Medrash Rabbah, Parsha Azos, in the Midrash, Vikhu Lahem Ish Seh. It says Ish Seh Lebeisavos. Each person has to take a sheep for the family. This is, we're speaking about Pesach Mitzrayim, the Paschal Lamb in Egypt. Why does one have to take Ish Seh, each person, the sheep or the goat? Ishvil Elokim Yira Lo Aseh. Because at the Akedah, Avraham Avinu said to Yitzchak, Elokim Yira Lo Aseh. He says, where's the sheep? So Avraham said to Yitzchak, his son, on the way to the Akedah, before Yitzchak became aware that he'd be the object of the Akedah, of the binding, Hashem said, Elokim Yira Lo Aseh. Elokim will show you the Seh. So therefore we bring the Seh for the Korban Pesach. That's what we use the sheep specifically. Tomim, it has to be unblemished. Right? The sheep for the Korban Pesach, to qualify, it has to be unblemished. The Shmo Shal Kodesh Baruch Hu, Shem Atzur Tomim Polo. You have to take it for the sake of God. And who is God? Sur Tomim Polo. He's perfect. The rock, his action is perfect. This Dayino Emes. Zochar, it has to be a male. The Korban Pesach has to be a male. It's interesting. A peace offering could be a female. It does not have to be a male. But yet the Korban Pesach, which is a semi-peace offering, although its time frame is much more limited, because a peace offering can be eaten for 2 days and a night, a shlomi. The Korban Pesach is only maximally either till midnight or till dawn. But it has to be zocher. Why zocher? Why a male? Shu horeg b'choreim shel Mitzrayim. Because we were eating the Korban Pesach, we're eating the Paschal Lamb. What was Hashem doing? He was killing the males of Egypt, the firstborn. B'chosal b'chorei Yisrael. So the male we bring, he's having mercy on our firstborn, and he's destroying the firstborn of Egypt. That is why it's zocher. That's why the Korban Pesach, although it's a semi-peace offering, it's what? It's zocher. Min akvosim in izim, and if it's interesting, it could be brought either from sheep or goats. What is the sheep? What is the goat? Tikhu, kishem sheni horig b'chor ha'odom v'abehemos ha'shvochos. Just as I am killing the firstborn of the men, the people, the animals, and the maidservants, as it says, you have permitted to take anything you want, because we took the spoils of Egypt. Anything you want to take. And you should keep it, that ultimately you should have great joy from this. This is what we borrowed. Well, this is the taking. We took. When they realized they were dying, they said, you want one, take two. Just leave. Right? The Egyptians, they drove us out. Take anything you want. Shenemar, or Yimishmeris. The sheep or the goat had to be watched for 4 days to make sure it was unblemished. V'shachtu also. Atem shachtu a-pesach. V'nishochit b'choreim. You will slaughter the sheep or the goat, and I will slaughter their firstborn. Seems to be a little... You slaughter that, and I will slaughter that. Now, it's interesting. Could you imagine you have the most prestigious, pure family? The Shivim Nefesh Yardov Shidim Mitzrayim. 70 individuals went to Egypt. These are living angels. These are the children of the 12 tribes. The Shiftei Koch. And what does Egypt do to them? Turns the majority into pagans, to idolaters. Person has a king, he has a prince, which is refined at a level there's nothing comparable to it. Dedicated to the king. And somebody goes and corrupts the prince and turns it into a villain. What does the king do to that person who turns his son into a villain, his beloved child? It's unlimited wrath. What did Egypt do to us? He took the B'ni B'chori Yisrael, turned him into a pagan. Hashem says, what do we do when we slaughter the Pesach? We're terminating a relation with paganism. He said, when you slaughter that, I will slaughter them. I will slaughter their firstborn. Seems to be a little harsh. Harsh. What are they doing? Well, you realize, person, he's on trial to get the death penalty taken over. What about mercy? Well, he only killed 1 million. He could have killed 6 million. Mercy you want? The man doesn't deserve to exist in terms of his behavior. Egypt, the Bechorim, the firstborn, they carry the greatest level of responsibility. They should have allowed this. Therefore, what's dearest to you will be punished because you undermined and tried to destroy what was dearest to me, my Bechor. So when you slaughter the Pesach, I will slaughter the Bechor. V'lo min adam. You will take of the blood of the sheep or the goat. V'nosno shtei mezuzos. You put it on both doorposts. Shanei posech aleichem. I am skipping over you. Umeged aleichem. And I will protect you. Because as the Pasuk says, because when the attribute of din is in effect, it doesn't differentiate between tzaddik and rosh. You cannot be perfect enough. Hashem says, you put the blood on the doorposts, I will skip over you, and I will protect you. Behevu zehirim bo, and you have to be extra careful in this. Shebalaylo yochel, the korban pesach has to be eaten that night. Shnema v'ochlu es abosor balaylo hazeh. The meat of the paschal lamb has to be eaten that night. Sliesh, broiled in fire. Sliesh, white sliesh. Why not cooked? Bishul she'Avrom hitzilo mikibshon ha'esh. Avrom went into the fire. Not to bow to the idol. I saved them from the fire. Umatzah, and why is the korban pesach eaten with matzah? Bishul soreh shalosh ugos lamalochim. She baked. She kneaded cakes for the angels who came in human form as guests. Merurim. It's eaten together with moror, with bitter herbs, the korban pesach. You have the pesach, broiled, corresponds to Avrom. Matzah corresponds to Sori Menu. What's merurim? Bitter. Bishul Yaakov, shev shenirdevu bonav v'mitzrayim. Just as his children were pursued by the Egyptians to destroy them, it says, whatever work they did beforech, to destroy them. Kach nirdef Yaakov Esav. As the Jews were pursued in Egypt, that was a replica of the way Esav pursued Yaakov. Lo susir min ad boker. You should not leave any of the paschal flesh, meat, over until dawn. Kshem shani enu meshayir neshama ara boker. There were no survivors. Every firstborn, no bechor survived. By morning, we'll leave by morning. At midnight, they all died. It's interesting. The only bechor that did not die was Paro. Paro was the firstborn. Because he had a witness, and he had to motivate them to pursue us into the sea. As it says, he galvanized them to pursue us. Otherwise, they would have never gone to the sea, to the Yam Suf. I was mentioned the Chazal. Why did they choose to drown our males with water? Because they said the God of the Jews, when he punishes, it's always measure for measure. So therefore, if we kill the Jews by sword, he will kill us by sword. If we burn them by fire, he'll burn us by fire. But water, he made a covenant with existence. He will never ever bring a great flood on the world. Therefore, we have his hands tied. We'll drown their males by water. Hashem says, not a problem. I will not bring the water to you. You go into the water. You will drown the sea. You'll drown in the sea. But how do you get them to the sea? No problem. Paro was the firstborn. All the firstborn die except him. He will bring them to the water. The one who originally gave the decree to drown the males, he's a male. Firstborn, he will take them. Moshe Melech. What is analogous to a king? Sha'amal. Lebonov, Heviyodim, he said to his children, you should know, Shani Dodin in the Nefoshes. I'm sitting in judgment to judge capital crimes, to issue death penalty. Hikrivu Lidoron. He says, bring me a gift. She'ele Labimo. So when I go up to the location where I make my decision, who lives and who dies, because you gave me a gift. She'avar ulayrin aleich shelochem. Your portfolio, your case will be removed. Your case will be removed. Right now, I'm about to take lives. I mean, even though Midas Adin is in effect, the attribute of judgment was in effect, but regarding you, I will express my attribute of Rachmim. How? B'dam Pesach, in the merit of the blood of the Pesach. B'dam Milo, in the merit of the blood of the circumcision. And I will atone for your souls. Because when I pass over Egypt, in a moment when their firstborn will die, it's going to be a very difficult moment. Shenema bavarti beretz Yisroyim, v'chein Yisrael omrim, v'hi Hashem mizkov ladoch, mizkov liitos batzor ad kan. So now the Maharal will explain it. It's interesting. We say that Tzliesh corresponds to Avram, that he went into the fire, Hashem saved him. The matzah corresponds to Sarah. She needed the cakes for the angels. And the bitterness, that's Yaakov. He was pursued by Esau. We were pursued by Egypt. It's interesting. There's no mention of Yitzchak. The Pesach has no relevance to Yitzchak. Why not? And as she say, and he says, Elokim Yiras Aser. Why the sheep? Because when they went to the Akedah, Yitzchak asked his father, "Where's the sheep?" He says, "Elokim Yiras Aser." Hashem will show the sheep. That's why the Korban Pesach is the sheep. So the sheep of the Pesach somehow is linked to Akedah Yitzchak. But it seems to be who responded. Avram responded. It has nothing to do with Yitzchak, right? See, it's interesting. In the actual Korban Pesach, there's no representation of Yitzchak. No representation. We'll see. Hinu Reb Seinu Zal Pirshu Schus Shlosha Avos B'derech Acheh. Ki Nir Lem Schus Gimel Avos B'ofen Zeh. He says they understand it differently. Set Tomim. What is the unblemished sheep? Al Shem Yitzchok Sheri Tumurosa Hikravaya. Why was he considered Set Tomim? Because originally he was meant to be slaughtered. And the Malach calls out from Shemayim, from heaven, Al Tishchol Yodcha Al Anar. Don't extend your hand to the lad. And all of a sudden, there's a ram caught in the thicket. So the ram was brought in the place of Yitzchok. So the ram is a representation of Yitzchok. Tzli Yesh Al Shem Avram. Neish Avram. Royally Os Dikrot Tzli. Why? He's broiled. The meat is broiled. He should have been broiled. Avram should have been incinerated. He was thrown into the kiln of Nimrod, who was the king. It's interesting. Avram was the ultimate in hospitality, right? He was the Amur HaChesed. He was the pillar of kindness, loving kindness. What did Nimrod want to destroy? That representation of Chesed. Up. Why? What? He say, send your brother your bread on the water. You never know. It's interesting. Now, as I discussed many times, Avram did chesed at the ultimate level. Did Avram do chesed for the sake of chesed, or he only utilized chesed as a vehicle for an end? Only as a vehicle. As the Medrash tells us, he would host people at a level which is unheard of, and then afterwards they would thank their host for his level of hospitality which is unheard of. They say, "Thank you, Master Avram." He says, "What are you thanking me? Did I create this food?" You have to thank the master. He says, "Who's the master?" "Well, there's a God." By the end of the night, these people were committed monotheists. They abandoned the pagan beliefs. They became Every day in and day out, Avram was recruiting endless. The Rambam writes, when it says Hanef she'osa b'charon, when he went to Canaan, he had tens of thousands of people following him. Avram wasn't just a kiruv. It may have been one by one, but they accumulated into very large numbers. This is Avram Avinu. He wanted to destroy that. His vehicle of chesed, he sent his bread onto the world. What's chesed? Chesed is indiscriminate. Whether I succeed or not, I do chesed. That's chesed. Avram factually did always succeed. But initially, he hosted every year. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome to his table. To be treated royally doesn't make a difference. Nimrod understood. Why is he succeeding to such a degree? So he wanted to bevatas koach chesed. His ability, this amura chesed. The fire could not touch him. That's interesting. The Gemara tells us, in Sanhedrin, that Achav, this is Achav, who was an evil king, he was an idolater, pagan, that they would sacrifice to the Baal, and the smoke from the sacrifices, the Baal would intermingle with the smoke in Mishkan Shiloh. So the Malachim said, it's a disgrace in God. Could you imagine the smoke of the sacrifice to idolatry is intermingling with the smoke of the sacrifice you bring to God? The Malachim were enraged. They were ready to kill Achav. Hashem says you can't do it. Why? Because it was known Achav's level of hospitality was unheard of. He extended his bread to anybody who wanted his bread. So his midas chesed protected him from being destroyed. Right? They were ready to destroy him, to kill him. Hashem says, he was not susceptible to be burnt. He wasn't vulnerable to fire. Because Avram has a godly dimension. What's God? The Gemara says a number of locations. It says there's a mitzvah of ubot tidbok. You should attach yourself to God. So the Gemara asks, but God is fire. How does a human being attach himself to fire? So the Gemara says you should marry a bas Talmud Chochem, because Talmud Chochem is a representation of God. You should do prakmatcha. You should engage in business with it to provide a livelihood for the Torah sage. You should feed and give drink to the Torah sage. That's how you engage in fire. Hashem's Eish is fire. Avram himself, that he had this spiritual dimension, godly dimension, as God is fire and therefore he's not affected by fire, Avram was not affected by fire. Now it's interesting. There's a Medrash Tanchuma which he didn't bring earlier. The Medrash says, when Avram cites a pasuk from Shir HaShirim, that when he was given the ultimatum by Nimrod to bow or go into the fire, Hashem says, now you have your chance. If you go into the fire and you're willing to die for me, you're going to be like an impregnable wall, that you'll be able, that you're able to buffer every assault. And it's going to be so secure, you'll be able to build a tower on top of it. If not, if you don't go into the fire, you're going to be just a piece of wood that ultimately will rot. Hashem says, I will be the fortress. I'm going into the fire to die for you. That's what Avram said. Okay? Who goes into a fire? When to die? You have a whole life before you. And I said, Avram, what was his status? He was a Ben Noach. He had no obligation to give his life. What did he give his life? He says to me, he said, it's irrelevant who I am, what I am. If I don't live as a believer, I'm not living as a pagan. I prefer to die. That's godliness. That's malus elukis. That's a godly dimension. You're not susceptible to fire. The Gemara tells us that when he was thrown into the kiln, Gabriel, who's the Malach Adin, he's the archangel of justice. He's Malach Eish. He's fire. Who's the angel who destroyed Machne Sancheiriv. Sancheiriv came to destroy Yerushalayim Beis Hamikdash. Talking about millions of troops. Hashem says to Gabriel, this is the end of the first temple period. He says, sharpen your sickle. You got a night's work to do. In one swoop, they were all incinerated. The whole Machne Sancheiriv was incinerated. Okay? That's Gabriel. Gabriel is Malach Eish. It's fire. So Gabriel says to Hashem, let me go down and save Avraham Avinu. I am fire, I will protect him from fire. Hashem says, this time it's me. I'll give you your chance in the future. When Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah will be thrown into the kiln by Nebuchadnezzar because they don't want to bow to his image, you'll be the one to save him. But Avram, I saved Avram. Why? Because he's the first. I'm the first and he's the first. He's the first human being to recognize God. I'm the first. And the Rishon and the Achron, I will go down to save him. Okay? Medrash. So what is his madrig? What's his dimension of being? Avram's dimension of being is godliness. Godly. Therefore, he's not susceptible to fire. Lefishu kol davashu alaki misyachis leish vein eish soreif eish. Fire cannot burn fire. There's a you do it, something you know. Mark tells us in Tainus that if you see Tzubid Rabbanan, advanced Torah scholar, becoming angry, you have to understand where he's coming from. When does he become angry? Think he gets angry when he hears the weather's not going to be good? That's not when he gets angry. When he gets angry, sometimes he sees the Torah being violated at a level, and he has difficulty tolerating it. So he becomes angry. Says you have to give him benefit of that. Why? Because Torah, it says, Kod Dvarei Koishnu Hashem. What is Torah? Torah is fire. So Rizcha Doraisa Rosach Bey. He has the fire of Torah burning in him. So if he's fire, he can't contain himself. So Rashi explains, says something very interesting. He says, I'll give you an example. This example, a person doesn't even know what it means to eat healthily. And he abuses his health, the food, just a question of living time bomb. The way he eats, the way he takes care of his health. Everything addressing his health, it's to the contrary. And you have another person who's so careful, doesn't miss anything at a level which is impressive. He comes in, walks in, he sees this person eating high cholesterol diet, smoking, everything where he's just a question of time where his arteries will be fully clogged. The man is taken aback. He never saw anything like it. Because he himself has an understanding and appreciation of what it means to be healthy, and this man is burying himself. He's digging his grave deeper and deeper, day by day. So, lahavdil, person goes and eats a McDonald's burger. Chas v'sholom. Not kosher meat, basa b'cholov, everything combined with the bun, whatever the bun is made of. And a Torah sage sees it. And there's Jews eating it. So the person who's violating the law of eating milk and meat, non-kosher meat, he says, Rabbi, what are you getting excited about? It's not the end of the world. What does the man understand? But the Talmud Chochem, because he says he has rachvas halev, he has a broadness and depth of heart because of the Torah studies, he fully grasps, understands, the man is committing spiritual suicide. The man himself who's eating, it's totally shut down. He doesn't begin understanding what he's doing to himself. Therefore, that's the basis for his anger. Could you imagine, God forbid, a person seeing his only child walking in front of a bus, God forbid, and he's going to have his life taken? How does he react to it? Can't contain himself. That's the Shurmi Rabbanan, when he sees a Jew doing the wrong thing, transgressing the Torah, he can't contain himself. But that's the Eish. That's Kol Dvarei Koishnu Hashem. That's the fire that burns within him. So the Chofetz Chaim once said, on Shabbos, there's such a thing known as a Kli Rishon. If you have a pot that was on the fire, cooking, and you remove it from the fire, it's not on fire, but it's still minimally 113 degrees and above. And you take a raw fruit or vegetable, meat, and you put it in that pot. You're in violation of cooking on Shabbos. You violated Torah violation. You violated the law of cooking on Shabbos. What happens if you leave the pot, the dish was on the fire, it cools down to 100 degrees? Even though that the little bit of heat that's left was from the fire, but because it's below the heat of what cooks, you put something in the pot, it's nothing. Why? Because it cooled down. But the fire that originally heated the pot is still a fire. So what's the difference between the fire and the pot? The fire heats the pot, but the fire is fire because it's fire. As he says, a person who's not a Talmud Chacham, a person who doesn't study Torah, and he's not a Talmud Chacham, studies his 15 minutes a day. Hears the rabbi's sermon once in a while, right? Reads the intellectual, whatever it is, pursuits of Reverend so-and-so, whoever he is. Okay? Well, let's say he associated with a authentic, genuine Talmud Chacham. He himself is not the Talmud Chacham. But when you attach yourself to fire, you can get heated up. You could be warm to be a Kli Rishon. But when are you a Kli Rishon? Only as long as you're associated with the fire. If you distance yourself for an extended period of time, you cool down. You're no longer, you're a Kli Rishon, but you're no longer totally ineffective because the heat of the fire is cooled. The effect, the impression is no longer there. And that's what it's about. So according to this, it's interesting. A person, the Gemara tells us that what is a Talmud Chacham? A person has instant recall, proficiency in the whole Torah. That's not a Talmud Chacham. We find that the Torah describes the Aron in the Mishkan. It says, when you cast it in gold, it says, "Mibayis u'mibachutz titzapenu." It should be cast on the inside, on the outside of gold. So the Gemara says that Kol Talmud Chacham, Shein Tochel Kibaro Inu Talmud Chacham, that a Torah scholar who's not genuine through and through, not a scholar. You can only be a repository of Torah if you're genuine. It's not you look the position. You are that. If you're that, then you're a receptacle for Torah. If you're not that, you're not a receptacle for Torah. So called Now, what does Tochel Gbar mean? He lives a life of spirituality. If a person is sincere in whatever he does, he's not two-faced. He's genuine. So what has he done? He eats for the sake of God. He sleeps for the sake of God. When he speaks to a person, it says, "Sichos chulin shel tamid chacham tzorach limud." Even when a Talmud Chacham speaks, even ordinary talk, speaks about the weather, is what to learn. Because the way he expresses himself, he doesn't speak nonsense. There's something to be drawn which has to do, you can learn a lesson from what he says. When he stands in line to buy the bread, you know, it's interesting. Just read this. Rav Shach, Zeich Tzaddik Livrocha, he lived till 107 years old. And he was the Godel Ador. And it was known he never walked. He always ran. If you'd have to get a sefer out of the bookcase, he would run to the bookcase. Run back, sit down, and immediately be fully immersed. When he would go to the bakery, or what they call the makolet, grocery store, he wouldn't walk. He'd run. Walk very quickly to do what he has to do, and he would wait online. If somebody would want to give him his place earlier, he would not. He waited his turn online. But the moment he purchased what he had, he was out. So he wasn't well. And the doctor says, you know, God's help, you're going to get better. You'll be able to walk again. He says, I never was able to walk. I never walked. I always ran. I don't even know what it means to walk. I always ran. That was Rav Shach. Every moment was fully invested. He had no time to waste. That was Rav Shach. This is Tochel Kabaro. Even his physical activities was purely for the sake, only to facilitate his spirituality. So his physicality, what is his body? Spiritualized. Spiritualized, that's a receptacle. That is the receptacle which can contain Torah. That's Midas Elokis. This is a spiritual dimension. It's a godly dimension. Because there's nothing about him that it's for his own glory. It's only God's glory. Everything is God's glory. Avram Avinu, we can't even fathom. We can't fathom what Avram Avinu was. Can't fathom him. So what was he? He was godly. We can't even relate how godly he was. I would say over. I just said it not long ago. When the Brisker Rav passed away, he was the leading Torah sage, the son of Rav Chaim Brisker, Chaim Soloveitchik. So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, Zecher Tzaddik Baruch Hu, was the Mir Rosh Yeshiva in Israel, came to say a eulogy. He says, when I eulogize him, if I tell you stories about him, special stories, it will not tell you sufficiently that you'll appreciate who the man was. He says, I'll give you an example. Avram Avinu hosted angels. When they came in, he rushed to them. He asked them to accept his hospitality. He said to them, lie under the shade of my tree. Take some water, wash your feet. Have a morsel of bread. He slaughtered 3 oxen, 3 calves for them. His wife prepared bread, dough. So he'd say, nice man. So he says, if you would say that about me and you, what would you say? Generous. But what was the result, the consequence of that? We merited the Ani HaKavod for 40 years. Could you imagine? So when he said, lie under the shade of my tree, what did that mean? Did it mean lie under the shade of my tree? If it only meant that, and that it began there and ended with that, you don't merit 40 years, that millions of people are protected miraculously with the clouds of glory. And when you give a little bit of bread, we merited the manna for 40 years, millions of people, miracle food, which sustained us and guaranteed that the Torah could be absorbed in their inner organs. You understand? So evidently, it's more than what you see. It's more than what you understand. Because of his dimension of person, when he did what he did, we're talking about it's another realm of reality. We can't even relate, so we're talking about Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu, because he had a godly dimension, and godly is fire, fire cannot affect fire. So it's just a small depiction that we don't even begin understanding what Avram Avinu was. I always say, my Rashivs, that's what I used to quote always Kuzari. The Kuzari writes that we're not even able to fathom the Amoritz, the ignorant, ordinary person who saw a prophet. We have no inkling of who that person is. You know what a prophet is? A prophet is a person God communicates with that person. An ordinary, we can't fathom the ordinary human being who saw the prophet. So you're going to fathom what a prophet is. And you're going to fathom what Avram Avinu was. You're going to fathom what Moshe Rabbeinu was. We have no frame of reference even to begin understanding what these people were. So you understand. You know, we say in this Katno Adoros that as the generations further from Sinai, we become smaller. What affects a person? Torah is Besorah. It's a transmission. If you have a certain dimension of Rebbe, we say, what is Avram Avinu's shade of his tree? What does that represent? It doesn't represent just the ordinary shade of a tree. It was a different dimension. What was the spirituality of Avram's home? You know, Avram's home, we find by Hagar, his wife, when she fled into the desert, angels communicated with her. Spoke to her. Hagar, what are you doing in the desert? She wasn't in any way overwhelmed. So evidently, she was used to this. Because she used to see Malachim in Avram's home. Nothing to be fazed by. We just read in Haftorah, Manoach, when the angel came, told him his wife's going to have a child and has to be careful not to have any grape product or wine or this or that. Afterwards he realized, he says, we're going to die. He's afraid he's going to die because what we saw was an angel. We're not going to survive, she says. But if God said we're going to have a child, then we are going to survive. So you understand the difference. So what was the shade of Avram's tree? You know what it means to be in the base of Mikdash? Well, it's just a stone structure, magnificent. You know, it's a citadel. It's an edifice. It's an edifice. This is Olam Haba. This is spirituality. It's a different dimension of existence. Avram's being associated, it's a different dimension. That's what it is. Therefore, it generated that. So if you have a Rebbe, the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda Anossi, he was greater than all the members of his generation. Judah the Prince, he's called Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the holy rabbi. He committed the oral law to writing, the redactor of the Mishnah. So Rabbi Yehuda Anossi says, do you know why I'm greater than all my colleagues? Because when I studied from a mayor, I only saw the back of his head. Meaning when they were in rows, he saw the back of Rameir. Say, no, Rameir was the leading Torah sage of the generation. Rameir. He says, when I studied under Rameir, I saw Achorov. I saw the back of his head. If I would have seen his face, I would have been greater. You're hearing the same words. But seeing that person, he said, I would have, you understand? Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm greater than all my colleagues. Do you know why? I take no personal credit. Because do you know who my Rebbe was? Rameir. And when I studied for Rameir, I saw the back of his head, which my colleagues did not see. But if I would have seen his face, I'd be a different dimension of person. So what does that mean? When you look at his face, what are you seeing? We're talking about Kol Dvar Keishnu Hashem, the Torah that's contained within Rameir. What is the dimension of that Torah? This is godliness. The Gemara says when Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel, who was one of the greatest students of Hillel HaZoken, when he would study Torah, the birds which would fly over his head, they'd be consumed by fire. But when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would study the same Torah, they wouldn't be consumed by fire. Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of the lesser students of Hillel HaZoken. They're studying the same Torah. Why, when Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel, when the birds fly over, said, why are they consumed by fire? They seem to be two great rabbis, holy rabbis. They communicate the same information. It's true. It's coming from a different source. Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel was a different dimension of person. The same words that come out, they penetrate differently. Yerushalmi asks a question. If Rabbi Yonasan ben Uziel was a student of Hillel HaZoken, when he would study Torah, the birds that within his 4 cubits would be burnt by fire that flew over his head. So Hillel HaZoken, who was greater than him, how do we differentiate between Hillel and a student? So the Yerushalmi of Jerusalem Talmud says, Yonasan ben Uziel was the birds that were within his 4 cubits. Hillel, even the birds outside his 4 cubits were burnt by fire. What do you mean? But they're studying the same Torah. Same Torah. No. It's a different dimension. Now you understand what this Katnu Adoris is. You have a computer. Download everything under the sun. Every iota of information. You think you can be spiritualized by listening to the computer? But Hillel HaZoken would be communicating that same Torah, you'd be a different human being. Because what's the source? The source is Kedusha. It's a whole dimension of something else. That's what it is. Therefore, the previous generations, the further you go back, closer to Sinai, it's a different dimension of the Neshama. Therefore, when they process things, their grasp was a different grasp. Because the more spiritualized you are, the less limitation you have. The more physical you are, physicality is finite. You have greater limitation. The Gemara says that David HaMelech, what he was able to fathom in Torah in one night, in a night, it took another person 70 years to understand the Torah. People in his time. That was the dimension of David HaMelech. You think David HaMelech was a king? David HaMelech was a Rosh Hashiva. He was the leading Torah sage of his generation, David. Who was David? David Melech Shel Chai V'Kayom. David is the author, he wrote Tehillim. He's a spiritual dimension. A person of that dimension, he's unlimited. He has a level of godliness, so if you're unlimited, is it difficult to understand? How could you comprehend 70, what it takes another person 70 years? You have to invest 70 years of your life to come upon that level of information. David in one night. How's it possible? So one night, multiply 365, multiply by 70 years. What did he know at the end of his life? We're talking about a being which was overflowing. The word is not. We speak of Reb Elazar ben Aruch, he was mining his gaber, it says in Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. He was like a wellspring which was continuously generating Torah. What was David? If David in one night is able, and what level was he able to understand? This is something, it's not fathomable. It's beyond. And when people speak about David, call him a David Chota Ein Ela Toeh. God forbid a person says David sinned, that he committed adultery, Chas v'Shalom. It's a grave error. You don't understand. And the Gemara discusses this. David Melch is Chai B'Kayom. We speak of Elokei Yitzchak. Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak. He was the location of the Shekhinah. Well, Yitzchak, he really didn't know what was going on. Asa pulled the wool over his eyes. You have a way people understand Yitzchak Avinu. So why did God choose that should be his location? His location, where he was, that was the equivalent of the Holy of Holies. Well, he was out of touch. He's out of touch. So why isn't God in touch with you? He's out of touch, but you're in touch. You're in touch with what? With materialism, with nonsense, with foolishness, with ego, self-centered, self-absorbed. That's why you're who you are, and that's why he was who he was. He's Elokei Yitzchak. What are you? Ki Hashem Yisroch Nikra B'Shem Eish. God is depicted as fire. Tichsiv Ki Hashem Kecha Eish Ochlo. What God is a consuming fire. Ulefichach Tzli Eishu Inyan Avram. So that the Korban Pesach has to be Tzli Eish, only broiled in fire, that corresponds to Avram Avinu. Shenemar Ani Hashem Asher Tzisicho Miur Kazdim. V'samti Shmo Avraham. I took you out of the kiln of Kazdim, out of the fire. That means you were not susceptible to fire. And who did he become? He became Abraham. What's Abraham? Abraham is Ramach. Numerically, it's 248. He came out fully in control of his physicality after the circumcision. Abraham, because after circumcision, that's when he had the name change. It says until he was circumcised, he didn't have full control over his physicality. Once he was circumcised, but why? Because then he was fully spiritualized. So therefore he had full control. He says what he's explaining here is something which is beyond. It's to be impressed beyond. He says, it's not the place now to talk more about it. Merurim, what's bitter? The bitter herbs. Neged Yaakov. Esav was unrelenting. We don't even understand it. Fine. It seems they had a pretty good relationship. No Tomid. What do you mean? He was in Shem Ve'ever. He was by Lavan. When was he pursuing? It says Yaakov Shtam Yoshevolim. Seems to be he let him alone and he was out in the field doing his thing. No, he says. If you show you Esav Rodef Oseh Tomid, he unrelentingly he was pursuing him. Umatzas neged Soro before you remez alach simos chutz misoris. Nice question. Right? We have Dalini Mos. We have 4 matriarchs. Why is Sora the only matriarch alluded to in the Korban Pesach? We have Avram, we have Yitzchak, we have Yaakov. When it comes to the matriarchs, we don't speak about Rachel and Leah. Rivka, you mean. The mother of Yaakov, why not? Why only Sora, you mean? Fish Avram hoyo lo Yisro Avram Avinu Rishon Lovos. We're going to have to continue this next week.